Hey MiniWarGamers, welcome to another episode of The Machine Shop with Ash. So this is episode 4 now of The Machine Shop. And you guys might have noticed, one of the things I like to do in this show is basically pick a talking point and talk about it. And sometimes I've got kind of an essay format where I've got, you know, my thesis, my body of evidence, my conclusion. Sometimes I don't. And I like talking about what's going on in my hobby too, because it motivates me, and I like hearing what you guys think. So yeah, format. I just talked about the format for the show, and now I'm going to talk about organized play formats, because I think that's something that's really interesting. I think it's something that's worth talking about. So when I say format, what do I mean? A format is, in gaming terms, in miniature wargaming terms, or just in game terms in general, a way of playing a game outside of, that exists sort of outside of maybe the basic mechanics of the game itself. So if I was to talk about this in video game terms, let's say you're going to a Super Smash Bros. Tournament, and it's a fixed player tournament. You'll hear terms like mains and subs when you hear about tournaments in video games, and what that could mean is you go to a tournament, you have to pick a main character and a sub character. You have to play each character at least once in the tournament, and you're, this is a kind of the tournament, and you're limited to those two characters. So let's say I'm playing Super Smash Brothers, I could be limited to Link and Luigi. All right, so there's in video game terms, that's a format, right? Now, when I go and put the cartridge or whatever it is now, discs thing, I like cartridges because I played video games a long time ago, and still do because I collect those. The game itself, when you fire it up in the machine, has no idea that this format exists. It's an artificial limitation or set of parameters that you're putting on the way you are playing, and we're focusing on playing here right now, a game. So in board game terms, that might mean you're playing Monopoly with somebody, and that person has played Monopoly with you in the past, and they know that you don't like making trades because you like screwing people out of getting a whole section. So you're not going to get Boardwalk if you have Park Place for me. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. Some people will put rules in play saying that you can't refuse an offer of trading of greater value than the mortgage value of the thing that they're offering you for. So, for instance, if you decide that you want to get Park Place off me, and Park Place is mortgaged for 400, I think, 400 Monopoly dollars, something like that. If you offer me 500 bucks for the mortgage properties, I can't say no to you. Because logically, if you were a land baron, you probably wouldn't do it. Or you probably would do it. You would probably say, oh, well, one of the other variations I've had of that to try and make me trade properties, I don't like trading properties, is if you are offered a trade of equal to or higher mortgage value to what you have, and it also completes a set. If it's going to complete a set for them, or they are going to complete a set, you can't say no. I know, it's crazy talk. It goes against the whole free market theory, but when we're talking about formats, we're talking about that. We're talking about rules that exist, created by the players themselves, the people organizing organized play, that exist outside the boundaries of the game itself. Now, the thing I want to talk about next is, well, why would you do that? So why would you do that? Well, there could be a couple reasons. I think the first thing you got to ask yourself is, who's making that change? So somebody's making that change. That organized play is existing for a reason, and someone's creating a format for that organized play. So I said earlier, players tend to make those changes. Well, that's true. One of the great things about the creative nature of this hobby is that people tend to take it upon themselves to carve out their own little niche in the universe, right? So whether it's how you're playing the game, or how you're painting the models, or how you're putting together your army list, people tend to diversify and be unique, because that's the strength of a hobby like this, is you can make it your own. So if we ask ourselves who's making the change, if it's the players, there could be a bunch of reasons for that. A player who makes a change to organized play could be for the purpose of creating a further challenge. A great example of this is when I first started playing War Machine, and I'm going to talk about War Machine because this is the machine shop, and I'm knee deep in War Machine right now. I was playing Mark 1. I had started playing after it was first pre-released at Gen Con with just the battle boxes. And then some units started to come out. And the most like overpowered thing in the army I was playing, which was Menoth at the time, was Holy Zealots and the Monolith Pair. People didn't want to see them. And I brought them in every single list. I brought them in my High Reclaimer list. I brought them in my Krios list. I didn't tend to bring them in my Severius list because they were okay, but they were almost always there. And those are the casters that were out at the time. I think those were all the casters actually that were at the time. There's only 3 in each book. So I used them all the time. And back then, there was literally no organized play for War Machine. So the press gangers thing had just kind of started up. And they hadn't given us any scenarios to play that weren't in the book. So we were playing the scenarios from the book. We were playing, back then it would be 500-point games because the point system radically changed between Mark 1 and Mark 2. We were just playing the scenarios in the book. And the press gangers at the time, that's all they really had to go with. They were really a demo core in the beginning. They weren't really running events and tournaments. But because other games had tournaments, they of course went and started creating tournaments and tournament systems. And what was really interesting for me in the last 2-3 months, meeting lots of War Machine players who are playing in the contemporary sort of tournament scene, is the drastic difference between the Mark 1 tournaments and Mark 2 tournaments that I played in. Actually, I only ever played in Mark 1 tournaments. That's a lie. I don't think I ever played in a Mark 2 tournament. And still haven't, actually. I haven't played any Mark II tournaments. And the tournaments today. Mark 1 ended and Steamroller was just beginning to exist. Steamroller was like very, very new. And it became kind of a much more bigger entity when Mark II came out. But that is an organized play format that came out of the company itself. So what's really interesting is they had a press ganger core. Those guys kind of went and made up some rules for playing tournaments. And then a couple years later, as Mark 1 got older, Privateer Press said, okay, we're going to give you, we see these tournaments are super popular. We're going to give you an official, sanctioned, this is the way we do it tournament system. And yeah, you can bring 2 lists. It started off with just 1 list, then it went to 2 lists. And you're going to play all your games with that list, and here's the way you do pairings, here's the way you do scoring, strength schedule, all that stuff. And for them, getting people to play in an organized fashion, it created value in the miniatures, and the value was what those miniatures did, not necessarily the widgets themselves, but they're enhancing the value because you get to play in a fun activity with those miniatures. And therefore, they drove sales with it. Another great example of that, Wizards of the Coast, Magic the Gathering, right? These guys created the older formats. There's a new format that's come out that people have been telling me about called Legendary, which is an expanded format. But in the old days, a couple years ago, a few years ago, the big sort of cash tournament Magic was Type 2 Magic. And Type 2 Magic was, I think, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, it was either Type 1 or Type 2. I think it was Type 2. I'm 90% sure it was Type 2. Was the playing of Magic where you were limited to the last 3 sets that had come out of Magic cards. And then there was other restrictions on your deck and stuff too. Now the basic Magic rules are build a deck, put the cards in the deck, shuffle the deck, play against your opponent. He has 20 life, you have 20 life, kill your opponent. Those are the basic rules for the original version of Magic. That's the basics of Magic. The format stuff though was created, and it's created by Wizards of the Coast because it's a great way to drive sales. You increase the value of the last 3 sets, right? So you can predict how much stock you need to print and how much you need to make, and you can get it out the door. And every, I think it's 3 times a year sets come out for Magic. I could be wrong. It could be twice a year or 4 times a year. But you can predict your sales patterns. When a new set comes out, all tournament players have to somehow acquire X, Y cards. There's spoilers. There's a whole game involved that business uses to drive sales by using the formats in general. So those are people creating, those are businesses, creating formats as a way to drive sales. And the other people that create formats are the players, the people actually playing the game. And a great example of why that happened, and it's interesting, I talked about Privateer Press where the players, which are the press gangers at the time, started off creating formats and then it bled into the business, and then the business realized what a great way it was to drive sales. So they officialized it and created an official way. Players make formats up and ways of playing the game for tons of reasons. None of them have to do with making money at all. Unless you're running a really successful convention and you're renting convention space and stall space to people and you're making a bunch of money off ticket entry fees. If you are a player, you're not making any money by creating a format to play a game. So you do it for other reasons. You do it because it creates a challenge. I think one of the most unique and interesting things that I've seen, which is not the official way of doing tournaments by any stretch of the imagination, is this Masters format that they've started using for War Machine. People have created this. They call it the Masters format, and it's quasi-official now, from what I understand. Like, it's almost the way that you do it, and the reason for that is the same reason that there was Type 2 Magic. Instead of playing with all the cards all the time, the person who has a base collection wins, or there can be a best single thing in the game. They create an added layer of complexity to the system. They put in character restrictions and the requirement that you play with at least 3 army lists. So that right there, and with the releases coming out, throws a level of challenge and complexity into the game that takes there from being an obvious best list potentially for that set of steamroller scenarios or whatever, and throwing a monkey of diversity into it, where not only do you have to play 3 different armies, now those armies can't copy any characters in between them. So all your named characters can only get used once. They have to all be from the same faction. Whoa, so there's a restrictive layer of complexity now. And they have to be good at a variety of scenarios. You know what scenario you're playing, you're not going to know who you're paired up against either. So for a hobby that's really in love with playing the game, the challenge is huge, and being good at it, the value of being good at it now becomes even better, right? So not only are you good at a game, you're good at an increasing level of difficulty at a game. I remember playing Halo 1 to death many moons ago when it was the hot new thing, and wishing that there was a challenge level above Legendary, because I was so good at playing Halo. Me and my friends sat on the couch and played Halo so much that Legendary almost was too easy. Like, I don't know how I was that good at Halo, but I suck at all the further later Halos. But the first Halo game I was fantastic at, and Legendary was even too easy. So the challenge is the reason why players will create formats to play a game. Another reason is potentially balance. There's a really popular Warhammer Fantasy format right now called the European Team Challenge, ETC. I think it's Challenge is what it stands for, or Championship. And that format gets used a lot in Europe. Apparently it's starting to get used a lot in the States. Doesn't get used here in Canada really at all. I'm sure some people do it, but none of the major tournaments here in Ontario, or Southern Ontario at least, use it. They don't use any kind of comping system really. But what those are for, in the minds of the people playing, is to create a level of balance in that game, Warhammer Fantasy. Actually, I was filming with my buddy Clarence. He used to run one of the big tournaments here in Southern Ontario, and is still really heavily involved in it. And he was explaining to me this European Team Championship, I think is what it's called, format, where the big changes are really to things like magic and army selection. So how many dice you can use when casting a magic spell, how you select your army. The idea being that there's the players playing in that format believe that there is certain imbalances that create unfair advantages or whatever in the game, and that needs to be addressed. So that's the format that they play. Now, other people will make formats for fun. Great example of that, my buddy Adam Vogel. He's a press ganger, newly minted in Buffalo, south of the border here from us in St. Catharines. Welland, but I live in St. Catharines. And he's running a charity event called Food Machine. You should all check it out. I haven't been yet, but I'm going to be going. So you'll get to see Food Machine coverage because Matt's sending me down there to do some coverage and check it out. The format reasons for this are fun. So fun and charity, really. You can do things like donate canned goods or a donation to the charity in order to take out a faction war beasts. And it's obviously all to take advantage and win. You want to win the games. But the whole point is you do stuff that's wacky and fun. So really, you can gain rerolls. And they're all in-game advantages and stuff. But it's so crazy and wacky and nutty that, like, who knows who's going to win? Who knows?
the winning is going to become, there's some crazy lopsided things that I'm sure are going to happen. People can take out of faction warlocks, or not warlocks, war beasts and warjacks and stuff, out of faction unit, like just madness. And you basically donate to create the madness in your army list and then go play lots of games with it. So the whole point of being there is everybody has a good time, lots of money and food gets raised for charity, and again, that they all have a good time. So it's not a tight competitive format by any stretch of the imagination, because the amount you can donate can give you in-game advantages nobody else has access to. But there it is. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a blast. I'm super excited to see it and meet the players that are all going to it. Yeah, there you go. And then the last reason, people will create formats. I've talked in other shows about Warhammer 30K community, guys who are super obsessed with the Horus Heresy series in Warhammer 40,000, and they will literally have events recreating famous battles, periods in the history, whatever, but they're creating a format that's really driven by the story of the game. That's also why people do campaign weekends. Campaign weekends are like tournaments. If you've ever been to one, they are like my favorite thing, where you play effectively a tournament, but you play a linked series of story-based games. So your army is participating in a story. One of the best ones I ever went to, you brought 3 army lists, and it was a 40K campaign weekends. So the first army list was a patrol, or a kill team almost. Yeah, it was a kill team. It was 200 points as a kill team. The second one was a patrol, so it was a 500 point, it had to be a legal army, but it was just a patrol. And then you had a 1,000 point strike force. And they all had to be legal armies within the rules for kill team, and then 40K for the other two in and of themselves. But they had to also legally add up in that addition into a formation. And your last game you played with a 1,700 point army made up of all the other armies, which was super fun. And we told a story over the weekend. And that was, again, a player-created thing. So those are the reasons that I've come up with as to why formats exist and people make them. The ones made by the players, those 4 reasons: challenge, balance, fun, story. One reason to do it if you're a business, you drive sales. That's what businesses do. They drive sales by creating formats. And even formats outside of formats. I think it's really interesting is those two connect sometimes. Steamroller by Privateer Press has been taken and adapted by the players into their own thing. They still use Steamroller, but they don't exactly use all of it. And they are modifying it to create further challenge, balance, fun, and stories. So there's the 2 things with formats. I think the next thing to talk about is what's the effect of doing that. So the effects, format effects. Well, let's talk about my experience with some of them. So I have played in tons of different tournaments, tons of different games. Most recently, some of the formats that I've learned about are, I was talking about the Masters format for good old War Machine and Hordes. Matt and I have been playing a ton with the ITS scenarios, the Infinity Tournament system made by Corvus Belli. And that has radically changed the way that I played Infinity. Previously, when I was really actively playing Infinity, the first thing I did was I wrote a mission and tournament pack for it, because the games were so the same every single game. And there were so many cool rules that never got used that I thought that it really needed a tournament system. And then about 2 years later, Corvus Belli came up with a tournament system that was really close to what I'd made up, because I think probably lots of players felt that way. And the effect of that on me as a consumer, so let's look at this from the point of view of the businesses. So I'll take ITS as an example. I bought way more specialists and painted way more specialists in my Infinity collection. I didn't really use my, for instance, Knight Hospitaller in my Pan-Oceania army that much until he became able to interact with objectives. So he was a doctor. I'd used the combo before where he had a pal bot and I'd walk him around and do things with him and heal guys on the other side of the board. But having a frontline assault guy, heavy armor infantry, good in close combat, has a multi-rifle, so he's got some good shooting options too. Religious troop, doesn't run away if your army breaks. He wasn't as awesome an option as he was. He's a good option, don't get me wrong. But when he had the ability to be frontline interacting with objectives, because he was a specialist, totally changed how I looked at that guy. And I used him way more often in way more lists. I painted my auxilias, my little flamethrower guys, they were good in the game before, but the fact that they all of a sudden, because they were both forward observers, became specialists and can interact with objectives in all half the ITS scenarios, made them way better, way better, and I painted them. So what happened? If Corvus Belli hadn't already had my money, because I was a collector as well, I was buying every Panos game miniature that came out, they would have gotten my money. The effect on me would have been, I would have gone and spent money on a Knights Hospitaller and that objective model. I did go spend money on a Kamau Hacker, probably the cheapest Willpower 13 hacking option in the game. I did spend money on a Crocman Hacker because a TO camo infiltrating hacker with decent willpower is fantastic in ITS if you guys haven't played it. They probably would have got my money in other ways too, but the role that specialists play in the game and the way the ITS scenarios work and the tournament system works, and the fact that that was adopted almost as the unilateral way that you now play Infinity. And I'll be very unsurprised if those scenarios aren't just in the Infinity 3rd edition rulebook that's coming out in about a month. I think it comes out November 13th, which is exciting because I'm looking forward to it. It changed my buying patterns. So what did that do for Corvus Belli? They sold probably miniatures that they increased the value game-wise in miniatures that they already produced, and they were to drive sales towards those miniatures. I'm also working on, here's another personal experience of mine, for the next War Machine League, a Tier 4 Magnus the Traitor War Machine army that gives me access to, I've talked about this before, some Signar stuff. So I can take long gunners or trenchers. I'm eyeballing on Miniature Market right now a trencher with unit attachment box that I could just all of a sudden have my mercenary army, which is pretty cool. So what did that do? That tier list, I think Bad Seeds came out in, that tier list is Most Wanted, and it came out either in a No Quarter or in one of the books. I think it was in No Quarter. I think it was in No Quarter magazine. And that tends to be where they're doing their tier list, is through No Quarter. And what it did was, again, push sales in a predictable way towards a product line. So if tons of Signar players weren't buying, or already owned, so they weren't selling a lot of those trenchers, all of a sudden guys playing Magnus Trader, Merc players have access to them. Bad Seeds does it too, actually. Most Wanted and Bad Seeds, you can take Signar stuff in both those armies. Now I'm going to. So again, predictably drove sales in a way, spotlighted certain miniatures that may or may not sell. It's a business lever being pulled to make me go buy stuff. So that was the effect of it on me. So about format stuff on me as a player, here's an example of us creating something. So you guys are probably watching the War Machine League Season 3. I'm going to be doing a video actually later on today to talk about how it's gone, because it's just, as I said, wrapping up. And no spoilers. but that's a format we here at MiniWarGaming created. We created the league format. And it had an impact on some of the games. So if you guys have been watching the War Machine League Season 3, you've probably seen lots of guys doing things that are out of character in a War Machine game. So they are attacking their own models to earn achievements. They are attacking, in funny and strange ways, trying to unlock achievements. That was an effect of us creating the achievement system. Actually, Joel created the achievement system for the Season 3 League on the way that those guys played the game. So the intent there was to create interesting and unique challenges for the players participating to do throughout the course of the league, and the effect was that they did it in a lot of different interesting ways. Sometimes it happened through sort of standard tactics fighting people, sometimes because it's War Machine players and there's an advantage in earning achievements in the league. You can win overall, and there are prizes in the league, so why would you not? They behaved in a way that would get them the optimal result of getting those prizes by getting achievements. So format has an impact on both sides. It can be really effective for a business to create sales, and for us as players, creating a format has the effect of it can make a game more balanced, it can make a game more challenging. So for instance, right now I'm also trying to come up with a master's sort of type set of army lists for my Cato army, my Menoth army, and my Merc army. And man, it's hard. Like, it's so hard because you have to keep track of who I've used in what list what I might be going up against. It is a super huge challenge to try and do that. And not copy characters across any of the lists and all that stuff. And it's like really fun. I sit in War Room on my phone, like watching TV, and my wife's like, "What are you doing on your phone?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm trying to figure out if I want this guy or this guy," and you don't care. I'm not going to talk to you about this. But yeah, it has an effect on me as a player, and I'm excited to actually maybe go to a tournament again someday and try it out. It's had an effect on me thinking about Warhammer. I've been playing lots of games with Warhammer recently, most recently against my buddy Clarence, a really seasoned tournament player who's got me thinking about 8th edition and about how you play 8th edition competitively. Things I hadn't considered before, like your distribution of points amongst your units, your distribution across the board, how you protect victory points while earning victory points, stuff I hadn't thought about. And then, of course, talking about this European Team Championship format and how they view that same process has got me thinking about my dwarves and my ogres and all of the unpainted fantasy armies that I have sitting in storage right now that I could be unboxing, particularly Chaos, because there's cool new Chaos stuff coming in. Yeah, so that's the effect on me. I'd love to hear about your guys' experience with different gaming formats. In particular, because I'm so focused on War Machine and Warhammer Fantasy right now, that'd be something I'd love to hear about and talk to you guys about in the comments. So feel free to leave me a comment about that stuff, and we'll chat about it there, or maybe I'll even, if there's something awesome that sends a light bulb in my head, it might spark an idea for me to do another one of these shows, or just talk more about this even. And that's it. So yeah, so formats in gaming, in the gaming part of miniature wargaming, and I talked a bit about other games in general, board games and video games. There's Machine Shop episode 4. I hope you guys enjoyed it. So let's check out what's on the painting table. All right, so on the painting table. Well, I've got a bunch of miniatures on the painting table that I just finished painting that actually aren't mine. I have been painting Space Wolves for Dave. So here I've got 4 Dreadnoughts. You've probably seen him talk about these guys before, but I painted a couple of Venerable Dreadnoughts with shields and axes for Dave. I painted a good old Murder Fang with his murder claws. He puts his murder pants on one leg at a time like everybody else. When he's done, he murders people. And then Beyond the Fell-Handed, that I painted for him as well. Dave was super excited about his Space Wolves, so when all of his big pile of Space Wolf stuff came in, instead of getting one of our awesome commission painters that we work with to get them painted, it takes a while, it could take like 2 months. You really wanted to get playing with them right away, and I volunteered to get the bulk of what he needed to get started with painted. So I painted them, 20 Terminators, Logan Grimnar, a couple Land Raiders, 20 Long Fangs, and 10 Skyclaws in about a week, just to get him started. I don't know if I'm going to paint much more because that's a lot of painting time for me. And I do like painting my own stuff too, but there it is. So that's what I've been painting and working on the last couple weeks. Really excited to get done that stuff. The Long Fangs and the Skyclaws are sitting on my desk almost finished right now because I really want to open this guy. I talked about him in the last episode, but I'm really excited to paint this Galleon. It's the biggest War Machine model I've painted to date because I haven't painted any of the Ginormo robots yet. And I'm really super stoked to get them on my painting table. So that's what's up next. I don't really have anything in the unfinished, half-finished bucket that isn't like a huge pile of miniatures, so I didn't bring it to show you guys. I've also got that Infinity stuff for my Toha army that I'm slowly getting assembled and put together. So with a month until 3rd edition, I don't know if I should get them put together and built now, or if I should wait and read the rules, because that might change what I want. Probably will. The effects of format and rules affecting my painting. But there it is. So that's on the painting table for episode 4 of the Machine Shop. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Once again, talk to me in the comments. If you want to talk to me about painting or anything else, or give me suggestions on what I should paint next, feel free to shoot me a comment in there. All right. Until next time, guys, I'll see you, and happy wargaming.